It was pouring heavily on the street. The first heavy rain after the Indian summer, the temperature finally dropped a lot. And the pedestrians passing by all put on the clothes that had been neatly arranged in the closet beforehand. Lily stood at the entrance of the restaurant. Shaking the umbrella in her hand, she hesitated for a moment before pushing the door open and walking in. Fact. When she was waiting for the traffic light on the sidewalk, she had already stood across the street, through the transparent glass of the restaurant and the torrential rain pouring down from the sky. She saw David sitting at the table by the window, and David had also seen Lily walking towards the restaurant with an umbrella from a distance. That he smiled at her through the glass. Lily was led by the waiter towards the table by the window. She followed the waiter and tidied herself up a bit. After all, this might be the second last time she met David. And she didn't want to leave him with too bad an impression. The man at the table didn't seem to be affected by the heavy rain. His suit was so clean that there wasn't even a speck of dust on it. "Is your work busy now?" After Lily sat down, David spoke up. His voice was still gentle, carrying much more steadiness and reliability compared to his former youthful spirit. Lily took the glass of lemonade handed to her by the waiter and moistened her slightly dry lips. "Pretty busy. I'm in charge of 2 graduating classes." "What about you?" "It gets busier towards the end of the year." The two of them awkwardly and distantly asked each other about their recent situations, just as Lily was about to drink her 3rd glass of lemonade. The waiter served the dishes. There were her favorite fried chicken wings and lasagna, but those were the dishes she used to love very much. When Lily bypassed the fried chicken wings for the second time to pick up the green vegetables with her fork, David noticed something was wrong. "You don't eat it anymore now." "I'm getting older. And I prefer a lighter taste now." Lily didn't hide it from him and told the truth. If it were before, she might have made up an excuse to prevaricate. Or she might have forced herself to take a couple of bites for David's sake, but she didn't want to do that now. She had to make herself. And also make David see clearly that they didn't even know each other's most basic preferences anymore. The meal wasn't very lively. And Lily didn't have much of an appetite either. When they were almost done eating, she opened her mouth and said, "What time are we going to the marriage registration office tomorrow?" A trace of emotion flashed in David's eyes, but it disappeared quickly. He looked at Lily and said, "You set the time." Lily didn't decline and directly named the time. "Then let's make it 10 o'clock tomorrow." David had no objection. They didn't have any children, so there were a lot fewer disputes, and with all the hard work David had done over the years, Lily didn't have the intention of getting a share of it. Instead, David insisted on leaving a house for Lily when they left the restaurant. David paid the bill, and Lily didn't argue with him about it. The rain outside had already stopped, leaving only the puddles on the uneven road surface. There was a smell of the rain in the air, mixed with the cool autumn wind, which blew on the exposed skin and made people shiver. Lily had planned to part ways with David right at the entrance of the restaurant, but he spoke up first. "Lily, do you want to go back and take a look at our high school?" Lily was silent for a couple of seconds and didn't refuse. Their former high school wasn't far from the restaurant. They just needed to cross a street to get there. The security guard at the school gate wasn't the same one as before. So David exchanged 2 cups of coffee for 2 high school uniform jackets. He and Lily each put on one and sneaked in under the cover of the night. The layout of the school hadn't changed much, and there were still faint traces of what it had been like when they were students there. Lily had been back not long ago, but for David, it had been several years since he last came back. The last time he returned to New York was even half a year ago. Seeing all these, David couldn't help but feel a lot of emotions. When people wander outside for a long time, they inevitably miss their hometown. He hadn't never thought about asking Lily to stay in Los Angeles with him, nor had he never considered giving up everything and returning to New York. It's just that both of them had things they couldn't bear to part with. "Which class are you from?" "Wandering around outside." "Why don't you go back to the evening self-study?" The security guard not far away shone his ever-present big flashlight on the two of them. Obviously, they were already in their late 20s. But they were actually stunned on the spot by this shout. It was David who reacted first. He grabbed Lily's hand and rushed towards the downstairs of the teaching building. Lily kept up with David's pace. The oncoming autumn wind blew up the corners of the school uniform jackets on their bodies. For a moment, Lily felt as if she saw the old David again, the messy hair of the young man when he was running, the sweat that ran down the back of his neck, that unrestrained and beaming smile. And the warm touch of the sweaty palms. It was on a certain afternoon in that summer when she first met David. The summer of 2007. It was just when they were transitioning from the 11th grade to the 12th grade. Dull, hot, and tedious. Lincoln High School was always strict about lateness at such times. But Lily overslept during her afternoon nap at this crucial moment when she woke up. There were only 15 minutes left before the afternoon class started. Lily didn't even comb her hair. She picked up her school bag and rushed towards the school. Fortunately, she stepped into the school gate right on the class bell. She managed to escape the school security guard, but not the inspection of the 12th grade dean, just as she was crouching at the corner of the corridor on the 4th floor, preparing to sneak into the classroom through the back door when the geography teacher in the classroom was turning around while talking with great enthusiasm. The dean's powerful shout startled Lily. "Which class are you from and you're late? Come over here." Before Lily could react, her left hand was grabbed. She half ran and half walked, following that person downstairs. In front of her was the boy's messy short hair, and the school bag on his back wasn't fully zipped up, revealing a corner of the math textbook. The sweat that dripped from the hair strands ran down the back of his neck and slowly seeped into the school uniform, into the line on the boy's back. Around her was the sweltering heat of summer, the endless chirping of the cicadas in the trees, and the wet touch of the palm of her hand. The triple impact of vision, touch, and hearing left Lily's mind blank. And she couldn't remember anything at that moment. After running down a few floors and around a few corners, Lily finally came to her senses. The boy in front of her also stopped running. He turned around, bent over with his hands on his knees, gasping for breath. Lily, on the other hand, leaned against the railing beside her, breathing heavily. There was now a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. "Remember to avoid the dean next time you're late. If he catches you, they'll call your parents." The boy's gentle voice rose and fell with a musical lilt. Lily's gaze circled 360 degrees, fearing that she would be caught by another teacher. After looking around, she finally fixed her eyes on David's face. This face. It was really good looking. This was the first adjective that popped into Lily's mind about this face. Her gaze slid from that face to the name tag on the front of the school uniform. 12th grade, class 11. David. Class 11 was the honors class for science, and it was also the best class in science, and Lily was in class 1 of the liberal arts department, which was the honors class for liberal arts. Seeing Lily staring at him in a daze, David stretched out his hand and waved it in front of her. "You'd better hurry back to your class. Don't get caught by the dean again." By the time Lily came to her senses, David had already walked far away, leaving her only with his back view. That day, Lily was absent-minded the whole afternoon. She kept murmuring this name in her heart. David, David. After murmuring for an afternoon, she still couldn't remember where she had seen this name before. On the evening before the evening self-study, Lily just couldn't hold it in. She quietly asked her study-obsessed desk mate beside her, "Do you know this person named David?" She wasn't sure if this person was so famous that everyone in the school knew him. Her desk mate wasn't a gossipy person. She originally wanted to ask her good friend Emily, but Emily had a big mouth. As long as she knew some gossip, it would spread far and wide before long. Her desk mate's reaction surprised her. David, the top student in science. His name has never been off the honor roll. Who doesn't know him? Only then did Lily remember that she seemed to have seen this name a few times when looking at the honor roll. However, since she was in the liberal arts department, she didn't pay much attention to the science honor roll. What's more, Lily was a person who only knew how to study hard. She always listened to Emily tell her the school gossip. Maybe Emily had also told her some gossip about David, but she just didn't pay attention. The bell for the evening self-study rang, and the students walked into the classroom from the corridor one after another. Lily didn't continue the conversation with her desk mate. She just put her left hand under the desk and rubbed her palm with her right hand. The touch from the afternoon still remained on her palm, making it itchy and causing her to be distracted for a moment. When there is no intersection between people, even if they meet, they won't care, but once there is the slightest intersection, they can sense each other's presence even across a large crowd. David was such an existence to Lily. Since that afternoon, Lily found that David appeared in her life more and more frequently. The person she had clearly never seen before in school could now be seen every day. In the corridor, on the playground, in the school store, there were David's figures everywhere, and her eyes were always following that figure. that was the beginning of a secret crush on David. The study atmosphere in the 12th grade was always tense. Everyone seemed to be racing against time to get one more point for Lily. The only relaxation time in the 12th grade was neither sleeping nor the 2-day break after the intense monthly exams. It was the few minutes spent buying a bagel at the breakfast stand in front of the school, because those were the few minutes when she was closest to David. Sometimes, if she was unlucky, the previous batch of bagels had just sold out, and she had to stand in front of the stand and wait for a few minutes. Sometimes, if she was lucky, there were still some bagels in this batch, and the boss could put them in a bag and she could take them and go. Of course, Lily hoped that the time could be longer. Even much longer. David would eat bagels 4 days a week. They were Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Students in the 12th grade had to be in class at 6:30. David always went to buy bagels between 6:00 and 6:10. Then he would stand in front of the classroom door and give himself 20 minutes to recite English while eating bagels. In order to pretend to run into David by chance, Lily had to adjust her time according to his. She would appear at the bagel stand at 6:00 sharp on these 4 days. Then she would carry a bag of bagels and follow David into the teaching building. The honors class for liberal arts and the honors class for science were opposite each other. Lily would also imitate him and stand in the corridor eating bagels. Sometimes she recited political knowledge, and sometimes she recited English. However, during one chance encounter after another, David didn't recognize her. They were still two strangers. That hot and stuffy afternoon with the chirping of cicadas seemed like an unrealistic fantasy of Lily's. Day after day, from the sweltering heat of summer to the cold of winter, the summer school uniforms were replaced by autumn school uniforms. And then winter down jackets were put on over the autumn school uniforms. The bagel stand still opened on time every morning, but David's time was advanced from 6:00 to 5:50. On the eve of the final exam of the first semester of the 12th grade, Lily was summoned to the teacher's office by the homeroom teacher the moment she pushed the door open. The glasses she forgot to take off on her nose were covered with a layer of fog due to the warm air in the office. Even so, Lily still heard the familiar voice coming from not far away. "Teacher, my goal is still UCLA." A moment later, the fog cleared. Lily saw the person standing not far away clearly. The young man stood there tall and straight, like an unyielding pine tree. "Lily, come here." The homeroom teacher called her over. Lily didn't hear clearly what was said on David's side, and her thoughts didn't stay on what the homeroom teacher was saying either. Her mind was full of that sentence, "My goal is still UCLA." So, time had quietly passed a lot without her realizing it. In less than half a year, things like the college entrance exam, graduation, filling out college application forms, and going their separate ways would come one after another. Previously, the college application forms she had in mind had always been within the state. She had never considered going to study in a place so far away from New York. In the last final exam of the first semester of the 12th grade, as expected, David was still the top student in science. On the contrary, Lily, for the first time, squeezed into the top 3 in liberal arts. That year, during the winter break, the 12th graders only had a 1-week vacation after the short-lived New Year's Eve. Lily still met David punctually at the bagel stand. They hadn't seen each other for only a week, but his hair seemed a bit longer, and he seemed to have grown a little taller too. In the past, when she stood beside him, she only reached his shoulder. Now she had to tilt her head slightly to see his face clearly. In 2008, due to global warming, almost every city across the country had heavy snowfall. Even Los Angeles, a southern city, had the biggest snowfall in its history. Lily remembered that when the heavy snow was falling, their class was having a math class. As soon as the class was over, everyone rushed to the corridor like crazy, all of them extremely excited. This was normal because it was very rare for Los Angeles to have snow. When Emily pulled Lily to the corridor, she didn't see David's figure on the opposite corridor. "Emily, I want to go over there to get some water." Lily made up an excuse to walk towards the science class area. Emily was completely attracted by the snow outside and didn't notice anything wrong at all. "Go ahead." Lily took her water bottle and walked towards class 11 of the 12th grade. The entrance of their class was also crowded with students who had rushed out of the classroom to watch the snow. Lily made her way through the crowd and finally managed to squeeze to the door. she casually glanced into the classroom and saw David. He was sitting by the window, buried in writing a test paper. He didn't seem to care at all about what was going on outside. It was not until several boys came in through the back door, walked up to him, and forcefully pulled him out of his test paper that a faint smile appeared on David's face. Lily saw all of this, but she didn't stay long in the science class area. She took a detour and went back to the liberal arts class area, although she didn't see the snow at the same time as David. Lily met him again after the evening self-study that night. Very few people volunteered to stay for the third evening self-study at school, especially in such a cold winter, but Lily volunteered to stay. After the third evening self-study, Lily, as usual, carried her school bag and walked towards the school gate. As soon as she came down the stairs of the teaching building, she saw David, who was also carrying his school bag and walking in front of her. On the road leading to the school gate, only 2 rows of dim yellow streetlights were on. The light projected by the streetlights formed one circle after another on the ground. In the circles, there were small snowflakes flying all over the sky in the wind. Under her feet was a thick layer of snow. Lily quickened her pace. Each of her steps landed in the footprints left by David. One deep and one shallow. A thin layer of snow grains had fallen on the young man's shoulders and hair. Lily tucked a few strands of broken hair that had slipped from behind her ears. There were also a few snow grains the size of salt grains on the ends of her broken hair. An English listening passage was playing in the earphones plugged in Lily's ears the moment she looked up at David. The listening passage in the earphones was playing the line, "When I fall in love with you." Lily felt her heart beating even faster. Winter gave way to spring. The study tasks in the second semester of the 12th grade became more and more intense. Lily's mom didn't let her continue to have breakfast outside. So Lily had fewer chances to run into David by chance, but every time she passed by the bagel stand, she would still stop there for a while. The next time Lily stared at David openly was at the 100-day oath-taking ceremony for the college entrance exam. All the students were wearing the same spring school uniforms. Standing on the playground, there were 10 classes between their 2 classes. When Lily looked out, she could only see the bobbing heads in the crowd. So when David, as the representative of outstanding students, stood on the podium and led everyone to take the college entrance exam oath, Lily secretly felt a little happy. His school uniform was clean without a single wrinkle, and there was a faint expression on his face. The boy's gentle voice came out of the microphone, like the spring breeze in March, like the sweet rain in early spring. "We will bring honor to our alma mater with excellent grades." Oath taker. Scattered voices rose and fell from the audience. What came out of the microphone was, "Oath taker, David." Lily immediately followed and said her own name. "Oath taker, Lily." That was the first time their names were put together by Lily in such a way. The liberal arts and science students took the college entrance exam in different schools. Lily didn't even have time to say, "Come on for the college entrance exam," to David before the college entrance exam came to an end. The next time she saw David was the day when they went back to school to estimate their college entrance exam scores. After the exam, everyone gathered on the playground under the pretext of taking graduation photos to take pictures with the people they wanted to. Before it was Lil Y's class's turn to take the graduation photo. Lily was lying on the window, looking out at the playground. The science class 11 was taking their graduation photo on the playground. Lily looked at David, who was surrounded by the crowd, and she had an indescribable feeling in her heart. The sunlight shone on him, and golden spots danced on his hair. His whole body was surrounded by light. For a moment, Lily didn't know how to describe this scene. She didn't know whether to say that David was standing in the light or that he was the light itself that day. Until the end, Lily didn't have the courage to step forward and ask David for a photo. She just took a photo of his back from a distance. He was standing against the light, on the last bus of Lily's youth. In August, at the end of that midsummer, Lily received the admission letter from UCLA. But David didn't fill in UCLA as his first choice. Lily heard this from Emily later. David's estimated score in the college entrance exam was much higher than the admission line of UCLA in previous years. The teacher suggested that he go to Harvard University, which was better than UCLA. Fortunately, David's college entrance exam score was more than 20 points higher than the admission line of Harvard University that year. It was a distance of 1,476 kilometers. The distance from Los Angeles to Boston that summer ended in a hurry. Before Lily even had time to feel regretful, she was pushed forward by time to her 18th birthday. she knew that this summer would always end. And both she and David were going to pursue their own lives, Lily thought. Then wish David a bright future during the 4-year college life. Lily met a group of very nice roommates from all over the country, but only one roommate was from Boston. She often heard this roommate talk about things in Boston. Sometimes about the weather. Sometimes about local snacks in Boston. Lily didn't often think of David. It was just that occasionally, when hearing these fragmented stories, she would still involuntarily think of her high school days, those days of secretly loving someone. In college, Lily majored in English. It was a major that had nothing to do with David's computer science major. Lily really liked this major. However, when she was taking the CT6 exam in her sophomore year and heard the line, "When I fall in love with you," from the earphones, she would still freeze for a couple of seconds during her 4-year college life. Lily had 2 relationships on and off. The first relationship was with a guy from her own major. It was just because that guy's voice was 80 similar to David's. This relationship ended when the guy caught a cold. The second relationship was with a guy from the computer science department. Although he was in the same major as David, he didn't resemble David in any way. At that time, Lily thought she should have gotten over David, but she didn't stay with that computer science guy for long either. In less than a semester, Lily broke up with him. The reason was that she didn't fully invest herself in this relationship. Regarding David, Lily only heard Emily mention him a few times when she went home for the new year. Even in college, he was still the dazzling David from back then. He had talent and good looks, but whenever David was mentioned, Lily would always be taken back to that summer. In the first semester of her senior year, a huge change happened in Lily's family. On his way home from work, Lily's dad was knocked down by a motorcycle on the street, because it was a winter night and it got dark early, and the road was already desolate. No passer-by noticed in time when a kind-hearted person sent Lily's dad to the hospital. The best time for treatment had already passed. Lily's dad didn't last 2 days in the hospital and passed away. Lily took 2 days off from her internship company and rushed back to New York to see her dad for the last time. Overnight, Lily felt that she had to grow up a bit, also because of her dad's sudden death. Lily changed her long-standing idea of staying in Los Angeles after graduation, even though she was already interning at a well-known company in Los Angeles. Even though Lily's mom was in the pain of losing her husband at the moment, she still advised Lily develop in a bigger city than New York. Lily's mind was also in a mess. She just said she would think about it, but when Lily returned to Los Angeles, she met David in this city. All the classmates from back then were in their senior year. The written part of the postgraduate entrance exam was over, and those who didn't take the postgraduate entrance exam had already found internship companies. So an old classmate suggested getting all the classmates who were studying in Los Angeles together for a meal on New Year's Eve. The day Lily returned to Los Angeles happened to be New Year's Eve. The dinner had been going on for a while when Lily rushed in. The moment she opened the door, she froze in place, because there was a person at the table she didn't expect to see. David, obviously. David didn't recognize her. He just regarded her as an ordinary classmate. Seeing Lily staring at him, he gave her a polite and friendly smile. After several years, the young man had grown into a man. He hadn't changed much from back then. Almost the same as the David in Lily's memory. Although Lily was surprised, she withdrew her gaze after only 2 seconds of astonishment. "Lily, come in quickly. Over here." Her desk mate from back then had also come to study in Los Angeles. At this time, a seat had been reserved for her at the dinner table, and that seat was right next to David. When Lily walked towards David, she subconsciously tidied up her clothes, which had been worn out from a day of traveling. During the meal, listening to the old classmates' jokes, Lily pieced together why David was in Los Angeles. As graduation was approaching, everyone was considering their own development, and David was no different from others. Just like 4 years ago, he still chose to start a business in Los Angeles, his favorite city. Before graduating, he came to Los Angeles with several partners. On the surface, Lily seemed calm, but her heart skipped a beat. Back then, because of David, all her college application choices were universities in Los Angeles. But now, just when she had the idea of going back to New York after graduation, David came to Los Angeles. Throughout the meal, Lily didn't say a word to David. Instead, David remembered this girl who kept picking up fried chicken wings next to him. After the meal, everyone was trying to give each other a ride if possible. Lily didn't expect that David, who was standing beside her, would take the initiative to ask her, "Which district do you live in?" Lily tensed up a bit and stuttered slightly when speaking. Futian district. David stood under the streetlight and smiled with his lips pursed. He said, "I'm also in Futian district. We're quite on the way." By the time Lily reacted, she was already sitting in the passenger seat of David's car. The heating was on in the car, and a thin layer of fog formed on the car window. Sitting in the car, Lily couldn't see the scenery outside clearly. It was David who spoke first. "Are you from the liberal arts class? I don't seem to have seen you at Lincoln High School." Lily lowered her head and picked at the corner of her phone case. Sure enough, he didn't remember. Her voice was muffled. "Yeah, I'm from class 1. David asked Lily in a chatting tone. "I heard them call you Lily." "Yeah. Lily like the flower." "I'm David." David like, comfortable and standing firm. Lily looked up at David and said in a low voice, "I know." David didn't hear clearly and asked, "What?" Lily shook her head. "Nothing." "What major are you studying at UCLA? How do you know I'm at UCLA?" Lily asked him in return. David smiled. Suddenly remembered. "The dean told me back then that there was only one person in our grade who got into UCLA. And her name was Lily." Lily didn't expect him to remember this. Maybe it was because UCLA was a dream of his. "English. That's good," David said. His voice was soft, but it weighed heavily on Lily's heart. The restaurant wasn't far from where Lily lived because of the internship. Lily and her roommate moved out to rent an apartment together at the beginning of their senior year. David parked the car at the entrance of the community. Lily thanked him and got out of the car as soon as she got out of the car. Lily was wrapped in the cold air. She tightened her coat and walked towards the entrance of the community, just like in the 12th grade. She still didn't have the courage to ask David for his contact information. Just when Lily thought she would never have any intersection with David again, David's voice came from behind. She looked back. David rolled down the car window and leaned on the window. His voice was as gentle and pleasant as it was back then. David asked her, "Lily, can I add you on Instagram?" Looking at the new person in her Instagram list, Lily felt mixed emotions. The person she didn't have the courage to approach back then. She now had his contact information at this crucial moment. Later, through their interactions, Lily found out that the studio David rented for his startup was on the floor above her internship company. One was on the 15th floor, and the other was on the 17th floor. The distance of 2 floors also brought them closer. Sometimes, when it was on his way to work, David would give Lily a ride to work together. Sometimes, when she got off work late, Lily would carry takeout food and go to the 17th floor, waiting for David to get off work together. The people who started the business with David were his college classmates, and one of them was Mark, his roommate. After seeing Lily many times, Mark would occasionally joke about Lily and David, and call Lily sister-in-law. Every time Mark called her that, Lily would subconsciously look at David's reaction at the first moment, but David always didn't show much reaction, leaving Lily not knowing what to do. When it was close to graduation in the second semester of their senior year, Lily's class took graduation photos at the beginning of June. She didn't expect that on that day David would come to her graduation ceremony with a bouquet of flowers. Looking at David standing far away under the tree, the only 4 words that could come to Lily's mind were peaceful years. On that day, she wore a graduation gown and held the bouquet of sunflowers that David gave her, and took the first photo of her life with David. The regret from high school was filled on the day of her college graduation. The moment when the shutter was pressed, Lily felt that over the years, she should have never forgotten about David. The temperature in Los Angeles in June had already risen, and there was a hint of summer in the air. It had to be said that after staying in Los Angeles for 4 years, Lily had kind of fallen in love with this city. Lily and David walked side by side on the campus of UCLA. Just like the most ordinary friends, she lowered her head and played with the bouquet of sunflowers. As if remembering something, she suddenly looked up and asked the person beside her, "What's the meaning of sunflowers?" David stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Lily. His Adam's apple moved, and he said, "There's no one else in my sight, and all I can see around is you." Lily's hand that was playing with the flowers paused. She stared into David's eyes and forgot to blink for a moment. It was another summer. She heard David ask her, "Lily, would you consider being with me?" The summer wind carried a hint of saltiness, And Lily's mind was occupied by this sentence over and over again. She heard herself say, "Okay." As soon as she graduated from college, Lily received a notice of becoming a full-time employee from the company. So she naturally stayed in Los Angeles with David. It was only after they got together that Lily learned that on the night when David first gave her a ride, they didn't live in the same district. He just told a white lie so that they could take the same way for a while. At the beginning of David's startup, things didn't go smoothly. Later, it gradually got on the right track. Their living space changed from a one-bedroom apartment at the beginning to a two-bedroom apartment later. And then, they adopted a cat together. It was in the summer of their first year together that Lily picked up a little kitten downstairs of the office building. David named the cat Summer. In the summer of 2014, there was a big problem with the funds of David's company. Mark, who had always been joking and calling Lily sister-in-law, disappeared with a large amount of the company's funds. And that money was exactly all the funds for the next project. In other words, David was set up by his partner. Overnight, the project was suspended. Some employees of the company were laid off. And some resigned. The 17th floor suddenly became empty. Everything that could be used to pay off the debt was taken away. And even the house that David bought for Lily in Los Angeles as a preparation for their marriage was mortgaged to the bank. This change caught David off guard. And all the efforts he had put in since college were destroyed overnight. It also made this proud man suddenly bend under the pressure of life. David just couldn't figure out why Mark took that money. In those years, the housing prices were soaring, especially in the expensive Los Angeles. Lily, along with the dejected David and Summer, moved back from the two-bedroom apartment to a one-bedroom apartment. Fortunately, Lily still had a sum of money in the bank that she had been saving since college. And now it became the emergency fund for the family. The summer of that year was bitter and gloomy in Lily's memory. This blow didn't make David stand up again immediately. All his negative emotions burst out when he saw a strange man drive Lily home. That was the first time Lily saw a different David. He didn't lose his temper at Lily, nor did he vent his anger at home. He just hugged Lily for a long time and then calmly proposed to break up with her. Lily didn't agree. That was also the first time she saw David cry in front of her. That night, the cicadas were chirping loudly outside the window. They lived on the second floor of an old community. And right outside the window was a towering tree. Because of saving electricity, Lily didn't turn on the air conditioner. In the 35 weather, there was only a floor fan in the room working with a whoosh whoosh sound. Lily only closed the screen window. The sweltering summer wind blew in through the holes of the screen window, making people feel hot all over. The room was not lit, and the moonlight outside shone in, casting patches of white and black in the room. David hugged Lily from behind and put his head on her shoulder. His voice was low and a bit indistinct, but Lily still heard it clearly. David asked her, "Lily, shall we have a baby?" Lily opened her originally closed eyes and turned over in David's arms. In the pitch-black night, David's eyes were still shining brightly. So bright that Lily almost agreed to him without thinking. In the end, reality brought her back. If they had a baby now, could they guarantee a future for the baby? She couldn't. And neither could David at the moment. Lily felt the temperature around her gradually rise, and her clothes stuck to her body with sweat. This sticky feeling made her feel uncomfortable all over. She found an excuse to break free from David's arms and went to the bathroom. After taking a shower, she felt much fresher. The messy thoughts in her mind also became much clearer. Lily tiptoed back to the room, and the moonlight in the room was even stronger. David was facing the window and had his back to Lily. During this period of time, he had lost a lot of weight, and his shoulder blades made the clothes bulge in two places. Lily didn't know if he was asleep or not. Nevertheless, she lay back on the bed and hugged David from behind. Lily was silent for 2 seconds, and then whispered in David's ear, "We can't have a baby now." She could feel David stiffen in her arms. Lily paused, not giving him time to think wildly, and continued, "However, David, will you marry me?" Lily thought that it was David who took the initiative to add her on Instagram, and it was also him who took the initiative to say they should be together. So this time, when it came to getting married, she would take the initiative. The two of them rushed to the marriage registration office to get their marriage license at the end of summer. When they came out of the marriage registration office, Lily's hands were still shaking a little. There was no diamond ring, no wedding dress, and no decent wedding. Just like that, Lily married David after getting the marriage license. Their lives didn't really change much. David sent out resumes to various companies. Fortunately, not long after sending out the resumes, he received several pretty good job offers, one after another. At the same time, the police arrested Mark in Texas. Lily heard from David that Mark's father was a gambling addict and was deeply in debt. Mark had no choice but to embezzle the company's funds. When the funds were recovered, there was still a part left. But it was enough to pay off the remaining debts of David. Everything seemed to be getting back on track. The parents of both families decided to set the wedding date for the end of summer the next year. David was busy running around for this wedding. On the contrary, Lily became a hands-off person. The wedding venue and guests were all taken care of by the elders of the two families in New York. It was not until Lily walked down the aisle in her wedding dress that she really felt that she was married, without a doubt. Emily was the bridesmaid. She couldn't believe it since the time when Lily and David got together. It was not until today, when the two of them stood at the door to welcome the guests, that she really came to her senses. David was really smitten with Lily. The wedding went very smoothly. It was not until the MC said, "The groom can kiss the bride," that Lily realized that David's hand had been shaking slightly all along. Lily thought that at that moment, the two of them were really happy. After the wedding, the two of them returned to Los Angeles. The pace of life in Los Angeles was much faster than that in New York. The two of them didn't even go on a honeymoon and went straight back to work. In 2016, with the rapid development of the internet, David resigned from the company without discussing it with Lily and started preparing for his second startup. The economic efficiency of the company where Lily worked was getting worse year by year, and there were rumors of layoffs, both explicitly and implicitly, and coincidentally, the supervisor in charge of the layoffs was the one who had driven Lily home and unsuccessfully pursued her back then. Lily was not originally on the layoff list, but now her name was abruptly added to it. When Lily went home early, carrying a box of materials, she unexpectedly saw David at home, who shouldn't have been home at this time. "Why are you at home?" Lily sat on the low stool at the entrance, changing her shoes. David was sitting on the sofa, sorting out materials, and said casually, "I resigned and am going to start a business." Lily's hand, which was holding the shoes, hung in the air. "Why didn't you discuss resigning with me?" David looked up at Lily and was suddenly at a loss for words. He didn't know why he was afraid to tell Lily. Was it because he was afraid of failing for the second time, or because he was afraid that Lily would object? He didn't know either. For a moment, all the words of explanation were stuck in his throat, and there was a long silence in the air. Seeing that she was carrying a box of things when she came home, David chose to change the subject. "Why are you home so early today?" Lily put the shoes in the shoe cabinet and was silent for a few seconds before saying, "I was laid off." "Why were you laid off?" David didn't quite understand. Lily shook her head and didn't want to explain to David. "Never mind. Take a break at home for a while. I'll support you during this time." David comforted her. All of a sudden, all the grievances that had been pent up for a long time surged up because of this sentence. Lily suddenly shouted, "Support me with what? The startup you didn't even discuss with me, or our little savings before." David was stunned by Lily's shout, but he quickly reacted. Lily really wanted to tell David the reason why she was laid off. And she also really wanted to ask David in detail why he didn't discuss the startup with her, but in the end, she said nothing and just turned around and went back to the room. Later, when Lily repeatedly thought about their 5-year married life, she realized that from this moment on, they were already on different paths. David would definitely achieve what he wanted to do, no matter how hard or tiring it was, but she, Lily, was not like that. She was content with the status quo and only wanted a stable life. In the end, David was the first to give in this quarrel. He promised Lily that he would discuss everything with her first and then make a decision in the future. Lily didn't say much more. After that, Lily sent out resumes again and chose a pretty good job offer. However, the workplaces of Lily and David were in the East and the West respectively. Moreover, since both of their current jobs were starting from scratch, the time they could spend together at home was much less than before. In 2017, David's company caught up with the new trend of the internet era. The company's team grew rapidly in 1 year. From a team of only a dozen people to a large group of dozens of people, the company took on more and more business. And David spent less and less time at home. As their conditions gradually improved, they moved back to a bigger house than the previous 2-bedroom apartment with summer And they also changed to a better car than before, but Lily was not doing well in the new company. There was no one to talk to at home about what happened in the company. She suddenly missed their past a little. Although the house was not big, at least there was someone to talk to. Emily's wedding was set for the winter of 2017 in Washington, D.C. Lily originally wanted David to go with her. But it happened that David had to go on a business trip during those 2 days. So she had to give up. The flight from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. was in the early morning. Until the appointed time to send Lily to the airport, David still hadn't come home. Lily didn't call that familiar number. Instead, she pushed her suitcase, locked the door, and went downstairs. Just as she walked to the entrance of the community, she saw David's car slowly driving towards the entrance of the community. David parked the car in front of Lily, got out of the car, helped her carry the suitcase and put it in the trunk. "Why didn't you wait for me to come back?" After Lily got in the car and fastened her seatbelt, she replied, "I was afraid you wouldn't make it back in time and miss the flight. I hit red lights all the way on the way back, which took some time." David explained. Lily nodded and didn't say anything more. It had been 3 days since the last time she saw David. When they saw each other this time, there was a bit more unfamiliarity between them. On the way to the airport, there were red lights all the way. The car stopped several times on the way. Lily felt a bit awkward, so she found a topic to talk to David about. "I gave Emily $66,600 as the wedding gift. I promised her that back in high school." As soon as she finished speaking, David received a phone call. Judging from the tone of David's voice, it seemed to be something urgent. So Lily didn't say anything more. David took a moment while talking on the phone to make a mouth shape to Lily, and Lily saw it. He mouthed, "It's up to you." The phone call didn't end until they were almost at the airport. The timing was just right. Not leaving any more time for the couple to be alone, David took the luggage from the trunk and handed it to Lily while instructing her, "Remember to check your ID card. Remember to take your boarding pass. If it's cold on the plane, ask the flight attendant for a blanket." Perhaps because she hadn't heard David say so many words in one breath for a long time, Lily felt a warmth in her heart. She nodded and said, "Okay." When Lily took the suitcase and turned to leave, David suddenly grabbed her and said, "Honey, give me a hug before you go." In Lily's memory, David rarely took the initiative to call her honey. Sometimes, even when they quarreled fiercely, David would still call her Lily in a serious manner. She didn't know why on that day. He, who was not used to using such an endearing term, blurted it out when Lily boarded the plane. She still couldn't figure it out. Some things are clear to the onlookers but confused to the participants. She couldn't see clearly what was going on between her and David. But Emily immediately noticed something was wrong between them. Taking advantage of the time before the wedding started, Emily pulled Lily aside and asked in a low voice, "Are you and David having a fight?" "No." Lily shook her head. They really hadn't had a fight. "Then why didn't he come to Washington, D.C. with you?" Lily thought for a moment and said, "He's too busy." "Come on. The person who used to follow you even when you went to change your wedding dress now actually lets you come to Washington, D.C. alone," Emily said disdainfully. This year, Lily had already lost count of how many things she had used the excuse of "David is too busy" to prevaricate. Emily continued to ask her, "Is it because his business is getting better and better now and he has someone else outside?" Lily shook her head. "No." She couldn't tell what exactly was wrong between her and David, but when she watched Emily, who was wearing a wedding dress and walking firmly towards the groom on the red carpet, she seemed to see herself who had walked towards David with determination back then. At that time, all she wanted was to have a future with David. If Emily's words had given her a wake-up call, then what happened in 2019 was the last straw that broke their marriage. In that year, Lily was 29 years old. Her marriage to David had lasted for 4 years. Over these 4 years, David's company had steadily developed into a large company, and he was getting closer and closer to his original dream. In 2019, the cat they had adopted together, Summer, also left them in the summer of this year. Once, when David came back to get some documents, he forgot to close the door, and Summer ran out. It was killed by the local security officers who mistook it for a stray cat. Because of this, Lily was heartbroken for a long time. She didn't know if this was an omen, but Lily always felt that Summer's departure seemed to foretell the end of her and David's relationship. Not long after Summer left, Lily received a call from a hospital in New York. In the early summer of this year. Lily's mom was diagnosed with advanced gastric cancer. It was because of this that Lily decided to leave the city where she had stayed for 11 years and return to New York, when she heard David say that he couldn't accompany her back to New York for the time being. Lily felt a strange sense of relief in her heart, perhaps from the very beginning. She hadn't had any expectations of David in this matter. Lily resigned from the company, simply packed her luggage, and rushed back to New York. The hospital gave a time limit of 3 months. The last 3 months of Lily's mom's life, Lily stayed by her mom's side every day. Not leaving for a moment, she told her mom the interesting things that happened at work in Los Angeles and also the things that happened in college. But she didn't mention anything about her and David. Lily's mom seemed to sense something too. She slowed down her speech and said to Lily intermittently, "David is a reliable person. Back then, you married him when he was at his most down and out." Mom didn't object, because Mom knew that he would treat you well. Now, your life has also gotten better. David is busy, and you should also learn to understand. Mom doesn't want you two to part ways at this time. This long passage took a lot of energy from Lily's mom. That night, Lily's mom slept for a long time and she never woke up again. Lily didn't cry loudly like she did when she lost her dad, because she knew that she was the only one left in this family. The moment David learned the news, he bought the earliest flight ticket and rushed back. Lily's mom's funeral was set for the autumn. After the funeral, Lily proposed a divorce to David. Lily was dressed in a black dress, with no expression on her face. She held an umbrella and stood in the rain. Beside her was David, whom she hadn't seen for a long time. Lily looked up at David, and her gaze met his pupils. Her reflection was clearly still in those black eyes, but she no longer wanted to sink into it. "David, let's get a divorce," Lily said. The passing of Lily's mom finally woke Lily up from her long dream. She finally woke up from the beautiful dream she had woven for herself. She and David might have been wrong from the very beginning. If she hadn't overslept that summer, she wouldn't have met David. If she hadn't filled all her college application forms with universities in Los Angeles because of David that summer, she wouldn't have stayed in Los Angeles for 11 years. If she hadn't agreed to be with David that summer, they wouldn't have been together. If she hadn't said, "Let's get married," to David that summer, they wouldn't have had such a long marriage. For a moment, she didn't know whether to blame herself or David. Or maybe blame one summer after another. She thought that nothing had changed between her and David, but in fact, they had both changed. In this marriage, she had never forgotten all the kindness David had shown her. It was just that the David who could accompany her to the supermarket to buy groceries and cook had been lost by her in the long years. All that had defeated them was just the trivialities of real married life. "David, let's get a divorce," Lily repeated. David didn't understand. In this marriage, there was no betrayal and no separation due to life and death. He didn't know why he and Lily had ended up like this, and he always wanted to give Lily the best. But he forgot what Lily really wanted. Lily thought that the bravest thing she had ever done was to say goodbye to David, who had occupied most of her youth. On her 30th birthday, Lily's mom left her 2 houses in New York. One was prepared for Lily's marriage, but since Lily had been in Los Angeles for years, this house had been left idle. The other house was the old house they used to live in, and Lily could decide whether to sell it or keep it. When Lily returned to New York this time, she renovated the new house and moved in, suddenly returning to the slow-paced city of New York. It took Lily some time to get used to it. During this time, Lily applied for a job as an English teacher in a high school and didn't work in a company in the field of English anymore. The David family moved to Boston a few years ago. When David came back this time, Lily didn't let him stay in a hotel. The house she was living in now was a 1-bedroom and 1 living room apartment. She lived in the bedroom, and David stayed in the living room. After they came back from Lincoln High School and said goodnight to each other, Lily went back to her room. She woke up and fell asleep several times. She didn't know if it was because she had been back to Lincoln High School with David, but that night, she kept dreaming about the things that happened in high school. When she woke up in the middle of the night, it was only 2 o'clock in the morning. Lily was half asleep and walked towards the refrigerator in the living room and got a glass of ice water. After drinking a glass of ice water, she felt a bit more awake. David on the sofa didn't know what dream he was having at the moment, and he was mumbling something. Lily didn't want to go up and listen. She planned to go back to her room after drinking the water, but at the moment she turned around, David's mumbling became a bit clearer. and the distance between them was enough for her to hear. Can we not get a divorce? Lily, don't get a divorce. It would be a lie to say that she didn't feel anything in her heart. Lily walked over softly and tucked in the thin quilt covering David. The man on the sofa seemed to have changed a little compared to the young man in her memory. She squatted beside the sofa. Holding her chin and looking at him, Lily had never told David about their first meeting. She always thought that it didn't matter if David didn't remember. What was important was the present and the future. David, do you remember? I don't know if you remember, but I always remember. That summer, I overslept during my afternoon nap. It was you who pulled me out of the dean's sight. Our encounter was much earlier than when you first got to know me. I originally thought that only by going to UCLA could I make you notice me. Unexpectedly, we missed each other for another 4 years. David, maybe life is just about constantly missing each other. At 10 o'clock the next day, the two of them appeared at the entrance of the marriage registration office on time. After coming out of the marriage registration office, Lily felt an unprecedented sense of relief. In the end, she accepted the house that David insisted on compensating her with. He said it was compensation for the wedding house he had mortgaged that was given to Lily that year. The two of them said goodbye at the entrance of the marriage registration office. After this farewell, they might never see each other again. One was in New York and the other was in Los Angeles. Just as Lily knew back then, David wouldn't be willing to return to New York with her, just as she didn't want to stay in Los Angeles for him anymore, when neither of them was willing to compromise for the other. This relationship came to an end. Lily called out to stop David. David. David turned around and looked at Lily. The autumn sunlight shone on David, making him seem to be bathed in a layer of light that he came from the crowd. And now he was returning to the crowd. Lily smiled with relief. David, I wish you a bright future. At the end of the story, the prince will meet the princess. And the Cinderella will put on the glass slipper. It's just that Lily can no longer accompany David to grow old together. Perhaps the heavy snow that year fulfilled a dream of hers. Life is like a dream. And in the dream, it is still summer.